What's up, y'all? You know what time it is? It's about to be that time.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Savage. And we're back. One Piece 1089 is out, and with it comes the gargantuan reveal of what is left of Leloucia. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it should be reminiscent of Enies Lobby. Yes, I don't understand how that landmass is still connected there, but either way, what does this mean? Was the area where Enies Lobby was that the Ancient Kingdom? Was it a part of the Ancient Kingdom? Was it an ally? You know, in all of this, we need these answers, right? But things are looking good for my long-running thoughts that the Great Cleansing was a flood, right? And this was perpetuated during the Fishman Island arc, when we get introduced to an arc called the Noah. And when you have a guy walking around carrying a literal Bible, and you have Ivankov with a book that says Genesis on it, things are getting biblical. What this is doing is it is raising the water level a meter across the entire world. We are seeing the effects in every blue, in every sea. There are earthquakes. All of this has great, tremendous ties to the Void history, and even has callbacks to several arcs in the pre-timeskip, which are things that we're going to get into today. We're going to talk about the rest of the chapter briefly, and by the end, I am also going to name all of the unnamed fodder vice admirals that have come with Kizaru. So stay tuned for that. First, like, comment, subscribe if you're feeling the vibe. Here we go. You ever blow up an air mattress? You know, and while you're doing it, you kind of lean into the middle, and then all of a sudden both sides kind of flap up, and the air is just going here, and it's going there, and it's not going where you're trying to go, and put the air, or maybe it's not you that's kind of leaning on it. You know, there's somebody else is leaning on it, or there's kids running around, or animals, and they're jumping on it while you're trying to fill it, and the air is just going all over the place, right? The air is still in there, right? Just as the water in the world is still there. It didn't get evaporated by whatever the Mother Flame Uranus ancient weapon thing is. It's just pushed. So that's why things are rising. Did you like how I tied that in there? Anyway, this is a very easy callback for, I believe, just about anybody to the Aqualagana and Water 7. Right? We literally dealt with this. It was one of the issues. Every year, the tide would rise and it would submerge Water 7. It was something that Mayor Iceberg needed to deal with. And he deals with it every year. And that's why when we see Big Berg in this chapter, he's unfazed. This is Tuesday for him, right? We get shots of so many people. Hina also looks kind of unfazed, but it's kind of her MO. We see Laboon. We go all the way to Big Slappy, Whoop Slap over in Fuchsia Village. He's dropping the lore about, what's going on here. He's talking about Garp. Garp's not dead. We see the Kano Kuni, which is the home of Dansai and Dan Chinjiao. We also see an island that is completely submerged. I have an idea of what that could be, but it's that one's very loose. And we also see, just to understand the scale here with these earthquakes, top the red line, we see the celestial dragons. Also, we see Momonosuke on Wano. And Wano is a landmass on top of a mountain. It's not even on the sea level, right? But what was old Wano? It was underwater. It was submerged. It had been drowned by a great cleansing, a great flood probably. all of this to say that the media, the world has been taking a very greater interest in recent weeks and months to certain weapons. And not only that, we have a threat of AI, and what that can do to the world. And people have also been very interested in the creation of the atomic bomb. During Egghead, we have a guy that looks like Einstein. Who is our Oppenheimer in this situation, right? But we have this atomic event almost creating earthquakes and tsunamis all over, just like Japan gets. Oda's trying to say something. The early parts of the story had a ton of weather-related events that happened sequentially. And the first instance of all of this is actually the opposite of what we're seeing in this chapter, right? Rising water. The knock-up stream in Jaya. And I think that this is a situation where, because of the Mother Flame, Uranus, whatever ancient weapon, whatever did this years ago, created a situation where the water doesn't know what to do with itself, so it creates these pressurized pockets, and then it shoots up, dissipates all the water around, and gets ready to do it again. So it's just moving things around in a very high pressurized manner. We deal with that. When we come back from Skypiea, we go to Long Ring Longland, which is a land that has a very cyclical tide schedule, right? So every so often, the tide would subside a meter, and Tanjit and his clan would be able to move to the next island. And they would do that every, I think it was every 7 years or so. And this is why Aokiji needed to create a path for him to reach his family. Now, if the tide were to raise a meter, like some islands are getting completely submerged. Was Long Ring Longland one of them? Was it Long Ring Longland that we see where a shark goes into somebody's house? Maybe it's just a random island, but it could be. I think the trees would be a giveaway, though. Next up, of course, Water 7. And just think about the proximity. Annie's lobby is after that. And we visually see what we are seeing in this chapter. So the effects of what happened whenever that happened affected the surrounding area worse off than anything further out, right? So that's why Water 7 deals with the issues that it does, because this weapon was used on Annie's lobby. But what if it was actually the good guys that did that? And that was always like a bad territory to begin with. That would be a fun twist. Like it was Joy Boy that did that. or Lily or somebody. Next up, we went into the Florian Triangle, right, for Thriller Bark. Florian Triangle, based on the Bermuda Triangle, is an area where a bunch of ships just mysteriously disappear, right? But what if the Florian Triangle was kind of the Trinity test, if we're going along with this, atomic bomb analogy here. And it was the testing ground. And it's kind of got a different fallout feel than the rest of the areas, because maybe multiple areas were hit with the device. So that's what creates this pressurized fog that is kind of like going around everything, and that's what makes it creepy. But the reason that ships disappear is because there's a bunch of giant holes in the water and they just fall. And they're never to be heard from again. But somehow, Brook avoided all of this for 50 years. Wano is home of the continent pullers, right? Every single island that is on top of Wano has its own climate. And when we were on our way to Drum, we got an explanation from Vivi about how climate works in the Grand Line to begin with. Every island has its own climate. So I subscribe to the idea that all of the islands of Wano were individual allied nations that were stitched together, maybe by an original user of Doflamingo's fruit or an original user of Leo's fruit, and one of the continent pullers, if it was Joy Boy, if it was Oars, if it was Oars II, who knows, right? After the original Wano floods, They stitch these islands together, and this ancient giant Oni, probably what the skull of Onigashima is for, right? We still need to find out who was the skull of Onigashima. That person, who would have been that big, would have been able to put it on top of that mountain, keeping them safe from Imu and any of the effects that the rising tide would have should that weapon continue to be used. The castle on Marijoa is called Pangaea, and that is a reference to, basically the primordial form of Earth, where everything was a bunch of water and one landmass. So that continent polar would have been able to take this new Pangaic landmass, put it on Mount Fuji. Also, what if everything was one landmass, and it was actually these weapons that split everything up into their own little islands? Or the effect of the weapon itself shifted tectonic plates and just created new islands. And the blues to begin with. We're getting wacky. When we get into the second half of the chapter, we have so many characters that are literally eating. We see Kizaru's eating, Saturn is eating, Luffy's eating, Bonnie's eating, Sentomaru is eating, we're eating, although I do feel like the second half of this chapter was hit or miss. There were parts of it that I liked, and there are parts of it that I think will only work once we start getting into the volume view of all of this. When we left Egghead, there was dread, there was drama. Snake literally left us saying that it's time to begin hunting. I'm paraphrasing, but she was starting her hunt. Hawk was hunting. Zoro and Kaku went after him. Bonnie was having a breakdown. You had several members of the crew that were in various states of disarray. Usopp and Frankie, most of all, along with Lilith, were petrified. When we see them in this chapter, everything's fine. And there's a part of me that's just like, hey, that's my Yonko, hey, we're winning, we're up, right? And then there's the storyteller in me that's just like, but what about everything before? And if we do a flashback, there's no tension now because I know we've won. And even if this is a situation where Oda's trying to say, hey, well, none of this really mattered because what matters is this threat, which this threat always mattered more. Kizaru, 100 ships, all of that. But let's not downplay what was being set up for several chapters also. There has to be some importance there. Blackbeard's, raft was on its way. Although the dome was at 100%, so were they able to get in? Perhaps, just spitballing, if they had Moria with them, right? Would he be able to create a Doppelman that would be able to go underneath and get inside that way, and then he would be able to switch it, lower the defenses to allow Lafitte, Devon, whatever, in to get what they need and get out. So really, just the last page, I'm not a big fan of. The big panel, art-wise, style-wise, I love it, but it just dismantles the Seraphim threat, right? At some point, they had to break Vegapunk out probably, and then he gave an order that got the Seraphim back on their side, and that ended the fights. Now Saturn is here, so he'll be able to supersede that authority, and we're just kind of skipping past this, and I think that this is another situation where Oda knows that he's 10 chapters from chapter 1100, and he has something that he wants to reach by that, and if he had continued on the path with all of the other stuff, it would have taken him until 1110 to get where he wants to go, so he's skipping past it, and then he'll drip feed us the rest of it over the course of everything else. I really think this chapter also would have really benefited from one more page. Keep in mind, this is the first time that the Straw Hats are even understanding that the Gorosei exist. None of them know this. At least, we don't know that they know this, right? Maybe Robin does, because she learned about it off screen, either from the Revolutionary Army or, in her long past. But this is the first time any of these crew members are hearing these 5 old men. This is the highest authority in the world. I need Luffy to Luffy, and I need him to, pick up the snail and be like, hey, I'm Monkey D. Luffy. I'm going to be king of the pirates, and I'm declaring war against you guys. So bring it on. You know, essentially what he did to Big Mom. But it was brought up in the stream, and I loved it, where they were like, what if a bunch of people are tapping into this, right? And then Blackbeard hacks in, and he says it, which is a fun way to switch it up and change it around, right? But then, what if it becomes a situation where the Gorosei are listening in, and it's a call with them, but now it's become a three-way call between Luffy, Blackbeard, and the Gorosei, and Luffy and Blackbeard are bickering with each other over who's going to be the Pirate King, and you have these five old men just listening to this, like, we gotta stop these guys, like, what's going on? And then if Buggy also hacks in and he starts yelling at them, then, you know, we're really setting up the tension of, you know, who's going to be the Pirate King, and meanwhile we can cut to Shanks, and he's also listening in, but he does not get involved, because that would be more in, you know, his wheelhouse, right? Another thing that this chapter did was deflate the Vice Admirals. We spent a lot of time in this story hyping up, and if you really pay attention to the characters and anything, learning a lot of these Marines' names and who they are, right? And Oda gives us one from the pre-time skip, and the rest are all new. We've seen Dahl, right? But Doberman is the only one from the pre-time skip. He was involved in the Enies Lobby Buster Call. He was involved in Marineford. We have seen him a number of times, but now he's actually getting focus. He's getting platformed here. He's having scenes with Saturn. He is that guy for this. So it's basically, you know, if we got to power scale these Vice Admirals, someone in the Monster Trio is going to clash with Doberman. Now, I still don't think that we're going to get 1v1s in this. This is going to be more like Marineford. Small skirmishes as we're on our way out. But I did promise that we were going to name the other Vice Admirals, so let's go. All right, Vice Admiral roll call. We've got Stein. That's Frankie's uncle right there. We got Doberman. We got Dahl. We got Gigi Nuki. And in the bottom row, we've got Buddy Coop, Mannequin, and then these three I've already named. Frake, Gilly Chin, and Skunkman. There we have it. Those are the names until Oda changes them. Or maybe they'll always be the names. We'll find out. But I am excited for the Straw Hats to go up against some of these guys. And I do hope that reinforcements arrive and we see some others. I want to see some fan favorites here. Let's get Momonga, right? He's the only fan favorite. Let's just get some other randos. Strawberry, Dalmatian, Shu. You know, I mean, some of these guys don't have to be Vice Admirals. I still would like to see Shu, right? Very good. There's so many that we should see in this. But most of all, Smoker. And I still think we're going to get Smoker. We're going to see him. We will see him in chapter 1099. Because that'll be 1,000 chapters from his introduction. Oda will not let us down. And the Revolutionary Army will be playing a role in this in chapter 1100. And we will see Vivi in chapter 1103, 1,000 chapters from her introduction, math piece. Get ready for it. And that's going to wrap things up, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you for supporting the channels, coming to the streams. We've been doing the anime watch-throughs. We just did the Gear 5 episode. We're going to be doing 1072 this Saturday night. On Sunday, we're on break, but we are going to have a Theory for Theory. Our guest will be Mr. Morge. We're going to be doing that an hour later than our normal time, so 10 a.m. PST, 1 p.m. EST. And I've updated the figures that I'm selling, so if you're interested in picking up some of the collection, make sure to leave me a note that you're somebody from the channel, and I will personalize something for you and send it out. We got things that's just sold today. That's going. Got a couple of things, but also shout out to all of the members, new and old, and those names are The Mail, AIM PDX, Circular, Yasser S, Sword Egg, ZMP 323, Zigzag, Louis Silva, Having a Good Time, Young Smoky VP 17, Lucy B, Carmelo Smith, Hassan Z, Chance Rainey, Adamisk, Afrain Inu, Portgas D. Ann, Cash, Tyante Black, Martin Victorino, Jay Chizemp, Jacob. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate everybody. Hope to see you at the Theory for Theory on Sunday. We have a new computer now, so technical difficulties are over. So we'll be back to doing some Tuesday streams as well. So keep an eye out and like, comment, subscribe if you're feeling the vibe. I'll catch you later. Bye.
I've been swimming deep, deep. Savage.